So imagine you have like a totally watertight case.
Right.
You have the ultimate smoking gun. We are talking about a crystal clear WhatsApp voice note where, someone explicitly admits fault.
Yeah, the dream scenario.
Exactly. You have a sharp, undeniable CCTV clip showing exactly what happened. And you even have a clean PDF printout of the signed contract to back it all up.
Oh, wow, yeah, that's ironclad.
Right. For years, decades really, this was the ultimate proof. You walk into a room with those three things, you slide them across the table, and the argument is over. You win.
You'd think so.
But what happens when the legal system can no longer trust its own eyes and, well, its own ears?
It completely destabilizes everything. I mean, the entire foundation of our justice system, and honestly just how we interact in society, is built on this fundamental idea that seeing or hearing is believing.
Right.
If I have a recording of it, it happened. And suddenly that bedrock is it's shifting completely beneath our feet.
And that shift is exactly what we are focusing on today. Welcome to our deep dive. We are exploring an incredibly compelling piece of research by AI thought leader Johan Steyn.
It's a great piece.
It really is. It's an article titled, "The AI Evidence Problem is Coming for Every Courtroom." And our goal for this conversation is to really equip you, the listener, with an understanding of how the very concept of justice is transforming.
Yeah, because we aren't just looking at some, abstract sci-fi future of technology here.
Exactly. We are looking at how society is going to define truth when literally anyone, anywhere can fabricate reality.
And the core theme of Steyn's work highlights this massive structural pivot in legal philosophy.
How so?
Well, the fundamental question in a court of law is changing in real time. It always used to be, what happened?
Right. You'd look at the submitted evidence to piece together the events of the past.
Exactly. But now the primary overriding question is becoming, how do we mathematically prove this artifact is actually authentic? And the stakes here are monumental. This isn't just about high-profile cybercrime or, international espionage or deep-faked politicians.
That's usually what makes the news, though.
It is, but Steyn makes it very clear that this impacts everyday issues. We are talking about labor disputes at your office, family law and contentious custody battles.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Routine insurance claims after a fender bender. The things that affect normal people every single day.
Okay, let's unpack this. To really understand why the courtroom is, quite frankly, panicking right now, we first have to look at how the barrier to entry for forgery has completely vanished.
It really has.
Think about it like this. In the past, doctoring a photograph or, say, splicing together a fake tape recording, it was like forging a master painting.
That's a great analogy.
Right. It required immense specialized skill. It took a ton of time and usually a massive budget.
Yeah, you need a dedicated software, a high-end computer, and a deep understanding of lighting, pixels, or audio frequencies.
Exactly. So if you were involved in a petty civil case, say a dispute with a neighbor over a property line or a minor contract disagreement, the defense of who would bother doing this to me was incredibly strong.
Because it just didn't make economic sense to spend, $10,000 forging a digital masterpiece for a $500 small claims dispute?
Precisely. The cost and the effort were the natural firewalls of the justice system.
And artificial intelligence has entirely collapsed that cost to zero. It changes the mechanics of creation completely.
Right.
Before, altering an image meant meticulously editing pixel by pixel. Now, generative AI uses vast neural networks to simply conjure up a new reality based on a text prompt.
It's kind of terrifying.
It is. A highly convincing voice note mimicking your boss, a realistic image of a car crash, or a completely fabricated but flawlessly believable transcript, they can now be produced by anyone.
Just anyone sitting at home.
All you need is a standard laptop, or even just a smartphone, and a modest monthly subscription to a commercial AI service.
So this said that natural firewall is just gone.
The technical barrier has dropped so dramatically that who would bother is a completely dead defense.
Wow.
The answer today is, well, anyone might bother because it takes 5 minutes, requires zero technical skill, and costs almost nothing.
Which is wild to wrap your head around. The motivation to ruin someone's case doesn't have to be massive anymore because the effort required to do it is so minimal. A slight grudge is all it takes.
Exactly. And Steyn provides vital context for this. He points to recent urgent warnings from the National Center for State Courts.
What are they saying?
They are actively sounding the alarm that AI-generated evidence is a direct existential threat to public trust in the courts.
So this isn't just a theoretical warning about what might happen in, 2030.
No, not at all. They are pointing to early cases where fabricated audio and video have already been confidently submitted to judges as if they were real evidence.
That's bold.
And it is a global crisis. Steyn references a March 2026 analysis in South Africa's Doribus legal publication.
Oh, yeah, I read that part.
That analysis highlighted how incredibly quickly deepfakes go viral and become accepted as absolute truth.
Yeah.
They discuss how this technology is distorting everything from national elections down to local personal reputations.
Proving that absolutely no jurisdiction, no matter how small, is immune from this immediate crisis.
Exactly.
That brings up a really concerning point, though. If making fake evidence is this easy, and it's happening all over the world with zero technical friction, the natural conclusion is that our courts are just going to be flooded with fakes.
Right.
Like, we're going to be drowning in synthetic media trying to sort out what's real.
That is the obvious consequence, and courts are absolutely bracing for that sheer volume. But what's fascinating here is a secondary consequence, and that is what happens to the real evidence.
Wait, what do you mean? If the evidence is real, it's real.
Well, Steyn introduces a concept known as the liar's dividend.
The liar's dividend.
Yeah. It works entirely on psychology and the weaponization of doubt. Because the general public, and by extension, judges and juries, now know that highly realistic, undetectable fakes exist.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right. Anyone who is caught red-handed on a genuine 100% real piece of audio or video can simply point at it and claim it was synthetically generated.
Oh, wow. Let me play devil's advocate here for a second to really picture this.
Sure.
So, say I catch someone on tape clearly admitting to a fraud. Or I have a crystal clear security video of them stealing equipment from my business.
Okay.
We go to court and they can just stand up, shrug, and say, that's not me, that's AI.
Yeah.
And suddenly, I am the one on trial trying to prove I didn't manufacture a deep fake.
Exactly.
That sounds incredibly frustrating. Honestly, it sounds exhausting for the victim. You have the absolute truth in your hands, but the truth is suddenly treated like a malicious lie.
It is exhausting, and that dynamic is exactly what legal professionals are terrified of right now. The liar's dividend effectively shifts the burden of proof off the guilty party and onto the victim.
That's awful.
It weaponizes the mere existence of AI against genuine evidence. Investigations suddenly become vastly more difficult, and trials stretch on infinitely longer.
Because you have to prove the proof is real.
Exactly. The court now has to spend its highly valuable time, and the victim has to spend thousands of dollars on expert witnesses, just proving the authenticity of the artifact.
Wow.
They have to forensically prove the video is real before they can even begin to discuss the fact that the guy in the video is stealing your equipment.
So it's the ultimate stalling tactic.
Oh, 100%.
If I want to bleed my opponent dry in a lawsuit, I don't even have to argue the facts of the case. I just challenge the authenticity of every single digital file, every email, every photo they submit. I just yell fake, and the whole system grinds to a halt.
Precisely. It creates a massive loophole where bad faith delay tactics dominate legal proceedings. And as the old saying goes, justice delayed is justice denied.
So if the liar's dividend threatens to stall the justice system entirely, how on earth does the law adapt to this? It seems like it requires a total top-to-bottom redesign of how we even think about tracking evidence.
It requires a fundamental shift in document management and verification. We are moving away from traditional concepts of chain of custody into something much more complex and invisible.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because I was reading through the sources and thinking about traditional chain of custody. Usually that's like tracking a physical package, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You track who signed for the bloody knife at the crime scene, who handed it to the courier, who signed it into the locked evidence room at the precinct. It's a physical ledger of human hands.
Yes.
But Steyn argues we are shifting to a chain of authenticity. Rather than tracking who touched the outside of the envelope, we need to look inside the file. I kind of picture it like a chain of digital receipts or microscopic passport stamps. It's not enough anymore to just know who held the USB drive. We need to know exactly how the digital file was born.
That passport stamp analogy is spot on.
What specific camera sensor captured it? What operating systems did it pass through? What software compressed it? And what tiny edits were made along the way?
Yeah, you can't just look at the surface of the file anymore or the USB drive it sits on. You have to look at its digital travel history.
Okay, that makes sense.
To support this, Steyn cites a January 2026 piece from the law firm Kennedy's. They emphasize that AI detection and content authentication aren't problems for 5 years from now. They are immediate today concerns.
Right.
But Kennedy's points out a critical paradox that the legal system has to navigate when it tries to read those digital passport stamps.
What kind of paradox?
Well, the forensic methods and the software tools we use to identify AI manipulation, those tools themselves must be able to stand up to intense scrutiny in court.
Oh, I see.
You can't just run a video through a mysterious proprietary AI detection website, get a score that says 90% likely to be fake, and hand that to a judge as proof.
Because they don't know how it works.
Exactly. You cannot trust a black box detection tool in a court of law.
Let's drill into why that is. Because on the surface, a 90% fake score sounds pretty compelling to me. Why wouldn't a judge accept that?
Because of how these tools actually work. AI detectors are mostly neural networks trained to spot invisible patterns.
Like what kind of patterns?
Maybe the way synthetic video renders the lighting on someone's teeth, or the unnatural frequency of background noise in fake audio.
Oh, interesting.
But when it spits out a result, it doesn't say, this is fake because of pixel 45. It says, based on my training data, I am 90% confident this is synthetic. That is probabilistic guessing. It is not definitive proof.
Okay, that makes sense.
In a courtroom, the opposing counsel is going to demand to know exactly how that tool came to its conclusion. They have the right to cross-examine the evidence. But these tools are black boxes. Even the software developers who built them often cannot explain exactly how the algorithm weighted a specific variable to arrive at that 90% number.
Really? Even the creators don't know?
Often, yes. And if you can't explain the underlying methodology of your tool, a judge cannot admit it as definitive proof. It violates the basic principles of evidence.
Wow. So the tool you use to prove the evidence is fake gets thrown out because the tool itself can't prove how it knows it's fake.
Yeah, it's a catch-22.
That is a dizzying loop. So, if we can't rely on probabilistic AI detectors, what are the actionable steps here? How do we actually prove this chain of authenticity?
This is where we look at guidance from J.D. Supra, published in March 2026. They provide a very clear directive for litigators.
Okay.
Moving forward, metadata, server logs, and audit trails must be treated as first-class evidence.
Okay, let's define metadata really clearly for the listener, because that word gets thrown around a lot.
Metadata is simply the data about the data. When you take a photo on your phone, the file isn't just a grid of colored pixels. Attached to that file is a hidden header. It logs the exact time, the GPS coordinates, the aperture of the lens, even the specific make and model of the phone's sensor.
It's essentially the digital birth certificate of that image.
That's exactly what it is. In the past, this was an afterthought. But because modern generative AI leaves very few obvious visual or audio traces, no weird shadows or extra fingers like the early days.
Right, those creepy hands are gone now.
Thankfully. But because of that, it's the invisible digital footprint of a file that carries all the weight. The data about the data is now more important than the picture itself.
Okay, so understanding the problem is one thing. The mechanism of how we got here is fascinating and definitely a bit scary.
Yeah.
So what does this all mean for you? Practically speaking, what does this actually mean for the people handling our legal disputes and, honestly, the tech we are all using every day?
It changes a lot.
If litigators have to treat this metadata as gold, what does that practically look like for a legal team?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Steyn outlines 3 specific domains of action, and it starts with legal teams.
Okay.
For lawyers and in-house counsel, strict, uncompromising data discipline is now the key. They have to preserve absolute original files. They must capture that metadata the second a client hands over a file and document the transfer paths meticulously.
That sounds tedious.
It is, but crucially, they have to avoid format conversions.
Wait, like changing a Word document to a PDF? How does that ruin the evidence?
It is a massive point of failure right now. Let's go back to that hidden header we just talked about, the EXIF data containing the GPS and timestamps.
A digital birth certificate.
Right. Say a client texts their lawyer a native image file from their phone of a car accident. The paralegal receives it, and to make everything neat and tidy for a digital evidence binder, they drag that image into a software program and just click print to PDF.
A completely normal, everyday office habit. I do that all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when they do that, the PDF software is usually just capturing the visual layer. It grabs the picture of the crash car, flattens it into a document format, and completely discards the original file header to save space.
Oh, no.
So that digital birth certificate, the proof of exactly when and where the photo was taken, it is gone forever.
Just from saving as a PDF.
Yes. By simply making it a PDF, They might have just destroyed the very metadata needed to prove to a judge that it isn't an AI fake.
Wow.
Legal teams desperately need a strict playbook for handling files, specifically for the moment when AI manipulation is inevitably alleged by the opposed and defied. They can't just be dragging and dropping files anymore.
That is such a huge aha moment. A simple save as can literally destroy your entire lawsuit.
It really can.
Okay, so the lawyers are preserving the data, but eventually this lands on a judge's desk, and I'm just picturing the typical courthouse IT system.
Oh boy.
Right. Half of them are probably still running on Windows 7, and now we are asking them to evaluate the digital birth certificates of synthetic media.
It's a massive burden. Which brings us to Steyn's second domain, the courts themselves.
How do they handle this?
Judges and magistrates urgently need practical literacy around synthetic media. As we discussed, they don't need to become software engineers who can code neural networks.
That would be unreasonable.
But they desperately need to understand the limits of those black box detection tools. They need to understand the difference between probabilistic guessing and definitive metadata.
Right.
More importantly, courts have to establish clear, standardized rules and expectations for managing these authenticity challenges.
Meaning they need a streamlined process for when someone inevitably uses the liar's dividend to solve the trial?
Precisely. If they don't set boundaries on how and when you can challenge a file's authenticity, trials will simply collapse into endless circular tech debates.
Yeah, we never get a verdict.
A judge needs a framework to be able to look at the audit trail and say, okay, the metadata is intact, the server logs match, the authenticity is proven, we're moving on to the facts of the case.
So the justice system needs a filter to handle these disputes efficiently so the actual trial can proceed.
Yes, exactly.
But let's be realistic here. We can't expect every single lawyer, judge, and citizen to become a forensic data analyst.
No, absolutely not.
The system would just buckle under the weight of it. There has to be a systemic fix at the technology level, right?
And that is the third domain, tech providers and platforms. The ultimate solution here isn't behavior modification. It's building better default tools into the devices and software we already use.
Okay, that makes me feel a bit better.
Steyn cites the Content Authenticity Initiative, which marked 2026 as a pivotal turning point. They are pushing heavily for interoperable provenance and something called content credentials.
Content credentials. Let's break down how that actually works. What is the mechanism behind a content credential?
It relies on cryptographic hashing.
Okay, what is that?
A hash is basically a complex mathematical equation run on the exact data of a file. It spits out a unique, long string of letters and numbers.
Like a serial number.
Sort of, but deeply tied to the content. If you change even one single pixel in a photograph, literally making one pixel one shade darker, and run that mathematical equation again, the resulting string of numbers is completely wildly different.
Wow.
Yeah, it's mathematically tamper evident.
So it's like an unbreakable digital seal.
Exactly. So content credentials means baking this cryptographic hashing process into the camera itself.
Right.
The moment your phone's lens snaps the picture, the device generates that mathematical fingerprint.
Right, the source.
Yes. It creates an invisible, tamper-proof history that travels with the media across different platforms. If you take the photo, your phone securely watermarks the exact time, location, and sensor data with that hash.
Okay.
If you upload it to social media, the platform verifies the fingerprint. If someone downloads it and alters it in an editing program, the program automatically logs that an edit was made, generates a new fingerprint, and appends it to the history.
I see.
The digital passport stamps we talked about earlier are permanently mathematically baked into the file itself by default.
Okay, let's bring this all together. Because the core realization of our focus today is that the AI evidence problem is absolutely not just a niched tech issue for cybersecurity experts.
Not at all.
It is a fundamental seismic shift in mainstream justice that affects all of us. The era of casual digital proof, just handing over a screenshot of a text message or a printed PDF and saying, look, is completely over.
It really is.
The fix to this crisis isn't to panic, but to adopt a new discipline. It's demanding provenance by default from our tech companies and practicing verification as habit in our legal systems.
The transition we are living through right now means that in the AI age, justice will ultimately depend a lot less on what can be shown to a judge and far more on what can be mathematically and digitally proven through these invisible trails.
And that leaves us with an incredibly important and honestly provocative thought for you to ponder as we wrap up.
Yeah.
We started this conversation talking about that watertight case, the clear WhatsApp note, the crisp CCTV clip. But if the courtrooms of the future require this advanced tamper-evident metadata, this sophisticated cryptographic hashing to prove a file is real, what happens to the evidence recorded on older, cheaper devices?
That's the million-dollar question.
What if you catch a crime on a 10-year-old dash cam that doesn't have secure content credentials built into its hardware? If truth in a courtroom becomes something that only the newest, most sophisticated technology can definitively prove, does justice become a luxury?
It's a scary thought.
A luxury available only to those who can afford the right digital infrastructure. It makes you look at that old, watertight CCTV clip in a whole new, very uncertain light.